Good evening, everyone. You've been listening to the musical stylings of Lindsay Rogers. Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Whether right here within the Zoom meeting or via the live stream on Facebook, it's good to know you're all out there. My name is David Levy, and I am the co-founder of True Theater, which for the past 10 years has been producing quarterly events, such as this one, featuring storytellers from all walks of life, sharing their true personal stories based on the theme of the evening. We started in the intimate No Theater of Cincinnati, then moved to the gloriously restored Memorial Hall, and now we're online and in your living rooms. And the first exciting piece of news I have for you is that we are planning our 11th season right now. Tonight is the end of the 10th, next will be the 11th, and we have decided, given all of the uncertainty, to plan the entire 11th season, this is news, to be online like this, and for every show to be available to you for free. If the clouds should part and everyone feels comfortable doing so, we will plan a live in-person show. 9.5 years experience tells us that there is value in that, but we're also discovering the value in this, not the least of which is that one of tonight's storytellers is joining us from Japan. And speaking of the 11th season, a little later, I will announce the first 3 themes we have chosen for the season, but we still have to decide on the 4th. If you're in the Zoom meeting with us, you may have noticed a poll when you join. We are offering 5 options to vote on. We're asking everyone in the Zoom meeting to choose their favorite themes from among them to serve as our 4th show for next season. You can select multiple choices and we'll pick the top 2 to go into sudden death overtime. The choices are adulting, because after all, aren't we all so proud when we actually pull off adulting? Magic, ooh, a word with multiple meanings. Neighbors, we've all had good and bad ones. Hopefully you've been a good one. Thanks, I certainly hope in recent times when everything being as difficult as it's been that we're still able to find reasons to be thankful. And weddings. From shotgun to lavish affairs, they are often people's most memorable day of their life, but not always for the best reasons. So look for the poll icon on your screen and choose from among adulting, magic, neighbors, thanks, and weddings. The poll will close when our first storyteller begins her story tonight, and we'll have the results for you later. You know, we're so glad to be able to bring you this show for free, but it does not come without cost to us. So, and seriously, no pressure, but if you would like to make a donation to True Theater's ongoing 10 for 10 campaign, where we're asking people to consider donating $10 to help us celebrate 10 years of sharing true personal stories, you can do that right from your phones by texting TRUE10, that's TRUE10, to 44321. It will return a link for you to follow where you can donate $10 or whatever amount you want. No amount is too small or too large. Test us. And given tonight's theme, you might also click the box, which will allow you to donate money in honor of someone you love. Maybe a strong woman in your life who has inspired you. And while we're on the topic, please look at all the names of all the people who have generously donated to us in the past. Yes, there are 3 Williams and also a lot of other just as excellent first names there. Their donations, and maybe yours tonight, will help us cover the costs of our Zoom account, our website, and other overhead costs to keep the lights on, while at the same time providing us a starting budget to consider some other programming we're talking about and hope to be able to announce by the end of the year. And you can join this illustrious list of donors once again by texting TRUE10 to 44321. And now to get on with the show. As is true of all of our shows, we have chosen a one-word theme for tonight: suffrage. Chosen to commemorate the upcoming 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which states, the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Obviously not the end of the fight for equality for women, but an important step in the right direction. Now, it would have been a little difficult to stick literally to that theme tonight, but our plans have always been to make tonight's stories what they are: stories about empowering women and empowered women, told by the incredible women who experienced them, and all of which would serve as role models in various areas, whether you need to be reminded of the importance of self-care, ignoring the voices of haters, especially the ones in your own head, advocating for your sisters, standing up and sometimes sitting in for what you know is right, or the value in just pushing on, even when you don't always know why you're doing it. These are the stories you're going to hear tonight, but I will not be introducing them. Tonight, we're handing off that honor to the women of True Theater, our board members and production manager, all of whom make this show possible and will be doing so, I hope, for many years to come. The first of them is our board president and longtime friend of mine, Ramona Toussaint.
Hi, thank you, David. I'm so excited to be here for our second virtual show of True Theater with an amazing theme. My name is Ramona Toussaint. I've been the president of the board for the last several years of True Theater. We are growing and we're planning exciting things for season 11. I would love to talk to you a little bit more about what this theme means to me tonight. This theme allows us to illustrate the resiliency, the vulnerability, the strength, the resilience, that tenacity, and the spirit of women when they set their mind to do something. So I just love that whole spirit and what this theme encapsulates. There's a little saying that I have as a mantra for my life that is really interesting in these times, and I think it's really appropriate for this theme, which is: just as the caterpillar thought the world would end, it became a butterfly. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first storyteller. She was born and raised here in Cincinnati, Ohio, moved away for college, but then moved back to the area and has been a physical therapist for the last 20 years. She loves arts, she loves cooking, and adventure travel. Well, she asked us also to tell you a little bit about her story. She may cry, and she wants you to know that that's okay, and she's okay. And she just cries sometimes. And with that, I introduce, ladies and gentlemen, Megan Schartz.
6 years ago, next month, my husband of 12 and a half years passed away unexpectedly by suicide. And I found him. I can tell you with certainty that 2 people died that day, but society mostly only acknowledged the one that went into the ground. I quickly learned that talking about my pain to other people made them uncomfortable. But luckily, I had a guardian angel in my life. My gastroenterologist referred me to a therapist who specialized in grieving because he knew my health and well-being were in jeopardy. And on the first day of therapy, my therapist asked me what my goals were. And I said, I want to take back control over my life because I felt my husband's suicide had burned it to the ground. And I wanted to process his death in a healthy way so I could move on and at some point enjoy my life again. And the work began. And about a year into my new normal, my new chapter of living in therapy, My therapist said, "Megan, it is time for you to start making new memories that are all your own. It's time for you to start traveling again. And I think your first trip should be a trip that your husband never would agree to." Well, when Bernie was alive, we liked to watch Rick Steves Through the Back Door, Europe Through the Back Door on PBS, because we always like to talk about planning our next vacation. And I always wanted to go to Gimmelwald, Switzerland, and stay in one of those tiny little family run-ins and do day hikes through the Alps. But Bernie didn't like to be outside. He didn't really like nature. He was more of a big city kind of guy. So it was always a hard no. But after some online research and a few National Geographic articles later, I was signed up with a company in Colorado to do a guided hike of the Tour de Mont Blanc. The Tour de Mont Blanc is a 110-mile alpine hike through France, Italy, and Switzerland. It's one of the most beautiful long-distance hikes in the world. And every article I read said that it was difficult but doable, with amazing food along the way. And I am a sucker for a good meal. And I was desperate for a distraction from my painful reality, so I thought it sounded perfect. I'm very fortunate to have a neighbor who's climbed Kilimanjaro, and she hiked to Everest Base Camp way before it was a touristy, trendy thing to do. And she helped me train. And I couldn't have done it without her. Every weekend, we would gear up and carry progressively heavier loads on our backs. And we would go out rucking to get my spine and my feet acclimated to being under a heavy load for a long period of time. And since I'm a physical therapist, I was able to design a program to ensure that I was physically strong enough and cardiovascularly fit enough to climb mountains. I researched all my gear online, bought it at REI, and REI fit me for some boots, which I did a good job breaking in before I left. And away I went to Europe by myself to spend the next 2 weeks hiking through the Alps with total strangers. A completely insane thing to do. There were 6 people in my hiking group. There were 2 women from LA. They were editors for Travel and Leisure magazine. They were not interested in the hike. They were only interested in the physicality of the hike and never took any pictures. They complained at every meal, which I don't understand how you can do in Europe, but these 2 vegans managed to do it. Then there was another person from California. He was a 7-year-old gentleman, and he hiked every day of his life, and that man destroyed me every day on the trail. It was so impressive. There was a woman from Washington, D.C., who my guides nicknamed Princess Holly, and she quickly became my partner in crime. And we had 2 guides, one from Colorado and one from Australia, both named Dave. On our first day of hiking, I started to develop hot spots on my heels. My skin was wearing off, and my Australian guide had to tape them with duct tape to protect the skin so I could keep going. And it turns out that the boots that REI fit me in fit me fine in Ohio, no problem. But once I encountered the steepness of the Alps, my heel was sliding, and they didn't fit me appropriately anymore. This is the worst possible equipment failure you could have, and it is happening on the very first day of hiking. On the second day of hiking, we were passing through the Valley of Glaciers, France, and everything went straight to hell. It decided to rain all day, Forrest Gump style, coming from above, coming from below, coming from the sides. There was no shelter. We were fully vulnerable on the mountain face, hiking up a glacial pack of ice and snow. And my guides were very concerned about lightning, so they kept trying to scurry us along to keep us going. But it's very difficult to move quickly on a surface like that. And in the distance, I could hear the rumbling of an occasional avalanche. And sometimes underneath my feet, through the ice and snow, I could hear a stream running down the mountain. And I started to think that hiking might be something that's dangerous, which was later confirmed. After we had summited the mountain and we started to descend on the other side, we came across a Frenchman who was hiking by himself who had fallen on a bed of scree in the rainstorm. Now, scree is a very hateful surface to hike on because it's nothing but large, loose rock stacked upon itself. And if you're descending a mountain at a very steep decline, you have 0 traction. It's awful, and I hate it. But this poor man had sustained a compound fracture to his lower leg, so his tibia and his fibula were sticking through the skin. And I was the only medical person in our group, so I helped my guides duct tape his legs between his trekking poles for temporary stabilization, and my guides used their satellite phone and airlifted him off the mountain. Now, despite being covered in head to toe Gore-Tex rain gear that day, boots included, water got into my shoes because we were in a storm for 12 hours. When you're doing a long distance trek and your feet get wet, it's sudden death because your skin breaks down much faster than it normally would. And then it makes you develop wounds on your feet. And there is a great risk of infection when you're in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere. I had wounds on my feet. My heels were the worst of it. And as my pain increased, I started to move slower. That night we stayed in the Valley of Glaciers in a mountain hut, and all of the electricity was run by generator. The rooms were not heated. There was running water, but it wasn't heated. There was no cell phone service, no Wi-Fi, no roads in, no roads out. Everything, all of the supplies in this place and everyone who worked there was helicoptered in. It was the first time in my life that I had ever been somewhere so remote that it was only accessible by foot or by air. I was truly in the middle of nowhere. At dinner, I showed my guides my feet, and my heels were the worst of it. I had successfully worn away all layers of my skin so that my insides were now my outsides and they were bleeding. And my guides looked at my feet and shook their head and said, "Megan, you've got two choices. We can bandage your feet up and you can hike up and over the Alp with us tomorrow to Italy, to the first town where we'll get you medical help, and then we'll send you off to the airport and you can go home, or we'll airlift you off the mountain." Now this is day 2 of vacation, and I had trip insurance, but being airlifted off of a mountain sounded like an excursion that I did not want to pay for. And I'm pretty stubborn and tenacious, so I assured my guides, "Don't worry, I've got this, it's gonna be fine, it's not a big deal, I can do it." Like I knew what I was talking about, which I didn't, because I had never done this before. And that night in my room, I had a meltdown. My feet were shredded. I was trying to bathe my wounds in an ice cold shower. I had to put on most of my clothes to find warmth that night to sleep in bed. And I'm lying in bed crying because I'm so frustrated. I had come on this trip to try to start to rebuild my life, to try to start moving forwards, to start making new memories. And all I did was find myself in the middle of nowhere, alone with bleeding feet. And that voice in my inner head, you know, that inner bitch who tells you you're not good enough, you're stupid, she was really letting me have it, telling me I made a terrible mistake and a very expensive one. But luckily, I'm a Sagittarius, and it turns out that I love adventure travel, even when it's going very badly, which it was. And I knew it was ride or die time, and I was in. So the next morning, my guides bandaged up my feet, and they warned me, "Megan, these are all of the bandages we have. You have got to keep your feet dry." And we started up the mountain towards Italy. And along the way, we encountered a stream that was running much faster and deeper than normal because France had had a very wet spring. And I burst into tears because I knew my feet were going to get wet and my bandages wouldn't stick, my wounds would get worse, and I'd be flying home on day 3 of my vacation. And I wasn't ready to go home yet. And then my American guide took off his boots and his socks and he handed them to me. And he carried me across the stream on his back so I could keep going. And we all made it to Italy, where I spent a small fortune on bandages that lasted me the rest of the Tour de Mont Blanc, which I successfully completed. It took about 2 months before I could comfortably wear shoes again when I got home. And in a way, I was thankful for that terrible pain I had in my feet while hiking, because it was actually bad enough that it distracted me from the severe emotional pain that had become my new normal. I have since done 3 long distance hikes, Summit elevation, all with new boots, and it's going very well. It turns out disappearing into nature where my phone doesn't work and there's not another soul around is very therapeutic. I do my best thinking when I'm engaged in a physical meditative activity like hiking. Each hike has brought me another piece of healing and priceless memories that are all my own. Each hike has also shown me what an incredibly strong person I am, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I have found life again at the edge of my comfort zone, and it's good. And I'm very proud of myself for being brave enough to venture out.
Wow. Thank you, Megan. We're so grateful to you for sharing your inspirational and empowering story with us. Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy McCosham, and I'm one of the board members of True Theater's Board of Directors. Like Megan, I too am a widow. But that is just one of the many adjectives that can be used to describe me. However, as a widow, I can truly say that her story deeply resonated with me. Last night during the dress rehearsal, it brought tears to my eyes and made me recount things of my past. I can relate to her journey and powerful message of self-care. She has bravely dealt with her grief while moving forward independently and successfully making her own new memories. Yay, Megan. It takes a lot of courage and tears to make it through the tough transitions in your life. I'm sure we can all think of things and relate to that. Her story is a testament to the inner strength we all possess. And I think it goes without mentioning that during these crazy and difficult times of COVID-19, we can take away something from Megan's positive message of practicing self-care mentally, spiritually, and physically into our own lives. What a great story of triumph. Thank you again, Megan. And now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next storyteller. She is a local actress born and raised in Cincinnati, a 1980 graduate of Withrow. She enjoys spending time with family, cooking, shopping, and lives in the West End. So please welcome Kim Martin and listen to her story.
I grew up in the inner city of Cincinnati, the youngest and only girl of a single mom. My dad left when I was very young. My mom loved me with all her heart, but unfortunately, she couldn't do everything she wanted to do with me because of her having MS, or multiple sclerosis. Because of her having MS, she wasn't able to do a lot of things with me. So one we could do was what they were able to do was watch TV. And one of the things that we watched every year was the Miss USA and Miss Universe pageant. Now, I used to fantasize about being crowned every year. And deep down, I always thought I was too fat, wasn't pretty enough, and wasn't good enough. And TV was, as a kid, that was my outlet. Because also as a kid, I got picked on a lot. See, my mom was really strict with me as well. I wasn't allowed to go play at the other kids' houses, so I had to stay in my yard. Well, that wasn't a lot of fun, so I stayed in the house a lot. And we didn't have a lot of money, so I wasn't dressed like the other kids, and I got picked on about that as well. So coming home from school one day, a gang of kids decided they were going to pick at me about that and, you know, the way she was raising me. So I came home to the tune of old-fashioned, strict, all the way home, as well as being shoved, pushed, humiliated, you name it. I never told Mom about it. I think she knew though. One day I came home from school and she asked me how would I feel about having a big sister. Now, I'm the youngest and I knew there weren't any other kids around and she wasn't going to have any more. So I looked at her kind of funny. So when she said big sister, she was talking about the Big Brother, Big Sister program. So she explained that. And she didn't have to say anything else. So I was pretty excited about that. And I guess about a week later is when I met Sandy. And I guess you could say the rest is history. That was the summer of 1972. I was like 9 years old. And we've been big sister, little sister ever since. Sandy and my mom taught me what it was to be strong and to be a woman. And I'm forever grateful for that. That first summer, Sandy took me to the zoo, which I hadn't been since in a long time. You know, since my mom wasn't able to walk, we couldn't go anywhere. She took me to the Ohio State Fair that year. Hadn't ever been there. It was a lot of fun. My mom, she gave me the courage to get back up on stage when I got older. And I promised her I would continue to act because I was taking care of her with end-stage dementia, her MS, and other medical issues. I finally had to make the decision to put her into long-term care because she needed 24-hour-a-day care, and I physically just couldn't do it. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. Well, one day I got a call that she had passed away. The person that met me at the nursing home was Sandy and her husband. And they stayed with us until the funeral home came. I'll always be grateful to her for that. It meant so much to us, to me anyway. Anyway, a few years later, I'm on Facebook and I see a post for the American Beauties Plus pageant. And it brought back memories of watching the pageant with my mom. And anyway, my Facebook friend, Dr. Angie Rivers Harper, is the director. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm not doing this because I'm too old, too fat. It's too late for me to try to do anything like this now anyway. Well, for every excuse I had, Angie had a reason I could do it. She called me out on everything I said. She told me God didn't give me a spirit of fear. And she was right. I was just scared. So after some long deliberation and soul searching, I entered. Now, to say I was terrified was an understatement. You know, I've got all these things playing in my head. You know, I'm wondering, am I good enough? Can I keep up with these other women? Are they going to make fun of me? Am I going to make a fool out of myself? Am I going to fall on my face? And the answer to these questions are, yeah, I could do it. No, they're not. They didn't make any fun of me at all. Thank God for pageant boot camp. Dr. Angie and her staff made sure we knew how to walk, how to talk, how to look at the judges. And yes, you do need to make eye contact with the judges without looking like you're possessed or crazy. You definitely do. Pageant day, it was phenomenal. I didn't fall, but I fell before I got to the venue, before the pageant even happened. I landed gracefully and I looked really cute, but it happened before the pageant. So thank God I got that out the way. Getting ready, backstage, it happens so fast. It's just quick. You have opening, you say your name, your title, your local title, and your platform. And my platform was aging in the arts. It was just quickly. The next thing you know, I'm in fashion wear. I'm strutting my stuff. I'm on the catwalk like I'm modeling. The next thing you know, I'm in evening wear. I'm thinking of my mom watching down from heaven. And the next thing you know, I'm being called. I have my title. I got my sash. I got my crown. Mom, we did it. This is for you.
Thank you, Kim, and congratulations on your recognition in the American Beauties Plus competition. That's a really wonderful story. The next round of competition for Kim in the American Beauties Plus Nationals has been postponed until the end of March 2021 due to COVID-19. So Kim, we wish you the best of luck, and we'll be following the action when the time comes. Hopefully we'll watch you win the top award. So greetings everyone, my name is Marta Hewitt, and thanks so much for joining us this evening. I'm a new board member with TruTheater, and I've been involved with the visual arts and the gallery scene here in Cincinnati for several decades. But this is my first foray with live performances here in Cincinnati. And I'm learning so much as TruTheater continues to help share all the inspirational and memorable and transformational stories that our neighbors have. We wouldn't be doing tonight's theme if we didn't talk about voting. The very right those courageous suffragists fought for 100 years ago. Here to share some information about that is our very special guest from the League of Women Voters, Mary Kate Jenness.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight to speak with you on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Cincinnati area and to remind you all of important voting information. For those of you who aren't familiar with the League, we are a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and public policy through education and advocacy. The League is 100 years old and actually is the living legacy of the suffrage movement, because when the 19th Amendment passed, many suffrage organizations reorganized into chapters of the League. We are most popular, we're most known for our annual voter guide, which is in City Beat each year, and its online counterpart, vote411.org. We also have numerous other voter education events like discussions and forums. For example, we're having one next week on next Tuesday about law enforcement with candidates for Hamilton County Sheriff and Prosecutor. Most importantly, however, I wanted to remind everyone to register to vote. Now, since you've tuned in to Suffrage Stories, you probably are already registered, but it's always good to double check that you've not been purged and that all your information is up to date and accurate. Whether you're registered or not, you can visit vote411.org to find out or update your registrations. You can see here, there's on the slide, there's a register to vote button or a check your registration button. The deadline to register to vote is October 5th, but do it now. It takes only a few minutes and you can do it online. You can also use vote411.org to find tons of additional voting information, including your polling location, voting hours, how to vote by mail, and then a summary, and then our information on the local ballot from the candidates and the issues. It's really your one-stop shop for anything you need to know about voting. And the check your voter registration status is the best place to click first. This year, we're also encouraging everyone to vote safely, and the best way to do that is to vote by mail. To vote by mail, you have to apply to get your absentee ballot, and you have to do that. You can do that you have to download and print a form and mail it back. You can get to that, access that form through the check your voter registration status here on vote411.org, or by just Googling vote by mail application Ohio. The deadline to request the absentee ballot is October 31st, but again, get it out of the way. If you'd rather vote in person, early voting begins on October 2nd and goes through November 2nd at the Board of Elections. There's usually less people there voting early, so that's a good way to go. Or you will still be able to vote on November 3rd at your local poll. But be sure to wear your mask, social distance, and to be safe, you can bring your own pen. No matter how you choose to vote, be sure you are an informed voter with our non-biased election information in the printed voter guide or on Vote411 by clicking Find What's on Your Ballot, and it will pull up your personal ballot information. That's exactly what's on your ballot, and then you can compare candidates. Stay up to date also with voter information by following the League of Women Voters on Instagram or Facebook. And if you want to volunteer or learn more about us, feel free to email events@lwvcincinnati.org. Vote informed and vote early. Thanks.
Many thanks, Mary Kate, for all that important info. Vote, vote, vote. There is no reason not to take advantage of this very important opportunity. Our next storyteller is a TED Global and 4-time TEDx speaker and has coached over 130 other TED and TEDx speakers. She's the official English voice of Hello Kitty and a 3-time published academic. She's a stand-up comic, and as such, she tries to find the lightness in the dark, as will be evidenced by her story. She joins us tonight from her home near Tokyo, Japan, where she lives with her husband, Yuji, and enjoys practicing Zazen meditation. Please welcome Sona Stevens.
So I was having dinner with my friend's rapist. My friend, I'm going to call her Yumi. She asked me to tell this story. Actually, she wanted me to do a stand up comedy routine about it. Uh, I don't feel coerced, and I do this and share this with full consent. In Japan, an unmarried woman over 25 is referred to as Christmas cake. They can't be sold after the 25th. My friend is 35 and people are still calling her Christmas cake. And for her, it's July. So she joined a raping app. I mean, a dating app. She went to dinner with a guy. She missed her last train home and he ended up forcing himself upon her. Well, maybe force is too strong of a word because, well, he did buy her dinner. And the next day he texts her, "Thanks for the great date last night." And she replied, "I feel sick about last night." And he texts back, "Get well soon." Get well soon? Get well soon? Huh? Okay. And so she tells her sister-in-law, and her sister-in-law says, dakedo. But of course it's not what you want. But this happens to all women in their 20s. You're so lucky it's just starting in your 30s. And she told another friend who said, dakedo, you had a nice dinner, right? Well, then ask him out for another date. And another friend agreed. Now, it's common in Japanese culture to get these reactions. Yet I know it happens all the time, all around the world. And that's just what men do. You had a nice dinner. It's like when I buy my agent's kids fundraising chocolate bars. They get to take a school trip and I expect my agent to book me a gig. It's all quid pro quo. And she shudders as she tells me, I kept telling him to stop and pushing him off of me until I froze, but he didn't notice. Well, maybe pixelation in Japanese porn blurs the lines a little too much. Oh my God, it's so confusing. What's happening? Is she consenting or not? And listening to her, my body shivers and I have goosebumps even right now, hearing the account. And no. I know I could sound flippant, but what happened to Yumi infuriated me. And when stand-up comedians get mad, we tell jokes. But when Yumi told me she'd been raped, I sprung into action. Like, okay, all right. Do you want a morning after pill? A rape kit? Okay, it happened on Friday night. It's Sunday, 72 hours. That gives us 6 hours to get a rape kit. Okay, so here we are. We're frantically searching Google, and we actually found a gynecologist open on a Sunday night. So here we are. The doctor, the victim, and I are sitting in a room when she starts getting emotional. Not the victim, but the doctor, yelling at her and refusing to do a rape kit. And the gynecologist says, "Well, I didn't see the rape." I'm like, "Well, you didn't see that lady getting banged by her husband, but you see that she's pregnant." And maybe the doctor learned about anatomy with pixelated videos too. Like maybe she just got lost down there. But see, this is when I get triggered. You see, I wished someone had stood up for me. It was just a year before that I experienced obstetric violence and lack of informed consent from my own OBGYN. And now I can't have children. I will not let my friend sit alone in this. Now, as an immigrant living in Japan for 24 years, I know that I cannot beg. I cannot be emotional. I have to be the collected voice of reason. So I explained to the doctor. There was a huge news article recently about unreported and unconvicted rape cases in Japan, and sexual assault is often met with victim blaming and shogunai. Shogunai, that's just what happens when you go out alone with a man. So please call the police, ask them to come, and let's start the rape kit now with their authority. We will wait here. Thank you. And the police officers come. Well, actually, they sent two rookie female officers who can't answer any questions or actually receive any answers without checking in with their male superiors who are waiting outside the interrogation room. Okay, so here's the process. She makes a statement. They excuse themselves. One moment, please. They go out, come back in. Shoo, shoo. Another statement. One moment, please. Shoo, shoo. Statement. One moment, please. Shoo, shoo. These one moments make quite the statement. And we're both frustrated. And she is begging them, please, can I file an official report? And they denied her 3 times, which is 5 times less than she denied him. And they discouraged her. They said, if you file a report, everyone at your workplace will know you were raped. And the police do more for stolen property than they do for stolen virginity. Like, oh no, they stole your car. Oh, he stole your virginity. You like, and then in the middle of all this, her phone rings. It's him. It's Ken. He's calling. And she asks the police, do you want to interrogate him? And they say, oh, no, don't answer. Block his number. The police did nothing, which is exactly what she wished he did. And then Ken text, it's hot today. Be sure to drink lots of water. I'm like, who is this guy? Her rapist or her mother? He's the nicest rapist ever. Wow. He didn't get it. He really did not get it. And maybe this guy doesn't need the police. Maybe this guy needs to be re-educated. So I was having dinner with my friend's rapist. Well, okay, the plan was me, my husband Yuji, who, by the way, can handle himself, would meet up with Ken on a double date for his re-education at the busiest place we could think of, Shake Shack in Tokyo. We told him Yumi would join, but Yumi would actually be watching from a safe distance with full agency to call it off, leave, or join at any point. And so here we are. And I go up to greet him, big smile, shaking his hand. I mean, it is the hardest thing ever to shake the hand of the man who hurt my friend. And I tell him, oh, Yumi's told us to start without her. And I offered him a hot dog. He didn't want it. So while he was drinking beer, I'm like, now do you want the hot dog? How about now? How about now? How about now? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, Yuji, darling, would you like this hot dog? Yeah, sure. And he eats half of it. I'm like, oh, don't you want to finish it? Nah. Well, you don't have to finish it. I'm not going to shove it down your throat. And I went on long enough about this hot dog that Ken finally snapped. And he's like, will you shut up about this hot dog? Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. Me asking if you want a hot dog and not assuming that is consent. Can we talk about consent versus non-consent? I didn't want to use the word rape because if I did, I knew he'd run. And he tells me, well, this is uncomfortable. Who has conversations like this? Well, not me. I mean, this is my first time, but it's also my first time to sit across the table from a man who hurt my friend. And I don't think you're a bad person. I think you did a bad thing because, well, maybe nobody talks about these things. We all know how a baby's made, but no one taught us how to put one there consensually. And he asks, are you saying I raped her? I get it. It can be really confusing, especially in a culture where no sometimes means I'm playing coy or try harder. Therefore, you gotta be sure to get the yes. And there are 3 points to consent. 1, ask with clear, explicit communication. 2, receive an answer. Yes is yes, no is no, and okay is submission. That's non-consent. And 3, respect that answer. And we discussed this for a while when he says, I have a master's and a PhD and no one ever taught us this. Yeah, typical of a PhD to wonder why consent isn't outlined in a textbook. And so I asked him, so what are you going to do? Have clear communication. I want to apologize. Well, you can't call or text her again, but I can ring her. And she had left. She just couldn't watch. And she was 5 minutes away at the next station. But now she has some things that she wants to say. And so I asked him, would you like to wait 5 minutes? Yes. She returns and she sits down across from him and she's next to me. And she tells him what she needed to say and how she feels. He listens. He really listens. And he doesn't butt in to defend himself. And when she's done, he says, I am so sorry. I didn't ask for consent. I am so sorry I made you feel this way. And I promise I will never do this again to anyone else. I will be clear with communication, ask, and receive the answer, and respect it. I am so sorry. And I felt it was important to tell her, now that he has said what he needed to say, you can say what you need to say. And you don't have to accept his apology. And she says, I heard him. And that was closure for her. Her first step towards healing. I wasn't 100% sure we actually got through to him. But 2 days later, she got one final text. And he says, you don't need to reply. And he sent a formal apology stating he would ensure to get consent in the future. It doesn't make me want to like him or be his friend on Facebook, but it does give me hope. And I'm not advocating for everyone to re-educate their friend's rapist. But if we all stand with our friends, listen, and are present with them, whatever it is they're experiencing, that is the beginning of change. I did this for Yumi. I wished someone had done this for me. And I wished everyone understood the difference between consent and non-consent. Because now there's one more rapist in that man's head and one less rapist in the real world. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sines. Thank you for what you did for your friend, and thank you for sharing it with us. That was bold in many ways. Friends, we hope you've been enjoying tonight's stories. We're about to take a brief interlude, seriously brief, 4 or 5 minutes to stretch your legs, run to the restroom, talk amongst yourselves. And when we come back, we're going to share the themes that we're announcing for season 11 and how you might pitch a story of your own to share at one of them. So be sure to come back for that and 2 more stories after this very short break. Meanwhile, here are the top 2 results from our poll for what our theme of our 4th show of season 11 will be. From adulting, magic, neighbors, thanks, and wedding, our Zoom audience picked as their top 2, true adulting and true neighbor. So these 2 themes, these 2 show names are going to go up against each other in a sudden death face-off during this interlude. So if you're still here in the Zoom event, which I know there are plenty of you who are, please vote now. And don't forget, if you have nothing else to do and you're feeling like you want to donate to our ongoing 10 for 10 campaign, text TRUE10 to 44321. And whatever else you might be doing during the break, we hope you will remain in earshot because Lindsay Rogers will be playing throughout. See you in about 4 or 5 minutes, and take it away, Lindsay.
change like the autumn leaves. And it's time for you to go now. Every baby bird must try her wings, even if she doesn't know how. Just remember, I'm always here with you, through the joys and through the sorrows. Hear my voice when you're not sure what you should do. My love will help you through all tomorrows. Now fly away, baby bird, fly away. Spread your wings and take to the sky, to the great unknown waiting on the other side. Try your wings, baby bird, and you'll fly. I know you're scared of what lies ahead. Here's a secret, I am too. But our fears can make us stronger in the end. So take a leap into the vast and unknown blue. And just remember, I'm always here with you, through the joys and through the sorrows. Hear my voice when you're not sure what you should do. My love will help us through all tomorrows. So fly away, baby bird, fly away. Spread your wings and take to the sky, to the great unknown waiting on the other side. Try your wings, baby bird, and you'll fly. Every ending's the start of something new. Know I'm here with you, no matter what you do. So be free to fly away, baby bird, fly away. Spread your wings and take to the sky. In the great unknown, there's so much for you to find. So try your wings, baby bird, and you'll fly.
Welcome back, everyone. And thanks again, Lindsay, for that beautiful music. Friends, if you'd like to follow Lindsay on social media, find her Facebook page, The Wandering Linstrel, L-I-N-S as in Lindsay, T-R-E-L, The Wandering Linstrel. Check it out. Before we jump back into storytelling, I just wanted to share with you real quick the lineup of themes we have chosen for season 11. By the end of tonight, all of this should be posted on our website at trutheater.org if my internet comes back on. I'm doing this whole thing on my phone, egads. And you'll be able to submit your story ideas if you think you've got one that fits one of these themes. Keeping to Thursdays, on October 29th, we'll be approaching the end of 2020 with True Vision. 2020, get it? And on January 28th, we'll be celebrating the arrival of the baby new year with True Birth. When we did True Animal a few years ago, we got a lot of submissions about dogs, so we knew we'd have to one day do the show that we will be doing this year, and next year on April 29th, True Dog. And we'll be finishing off the season on July 29th with a theme chosen by our Zoom audience tonight, which I'll be announcing at the end of the show. So True Vision, True Birth, True Dog, and True to be Determined. Get those juices flowing and make sure to visit our website by the end of tonight and start submitting your story ideas. And now, back to the show. Once again, our illustrious president, Ramona Toussaint.
Thanks, David. I'm really excited about season 11. Our next storyteller inspires others as a life coach and as a story healer. She's a self-published author, and she's eagerly awaiting her third book. She also performs in multiple musical theater productions, the last being Dreamgirls. And she is a proud mother of 7 and a mama, or Maymay, a grandmother of 9. She is honored and excited to invite you into the stories from her life this evening. May I proudly introduce Christina Tellis.
With my infant son in tow, I opened the door to my tiny apartment. It was cold, and I also noticed when I opened the door, there was a disconnection notice that came out. All I needed was just one more day to get things together. I laid my infant son down on the hunter green couch. I looked around my apartment. The walls were not clean. The floor was not clean. It just wasn't the way I wanted things to be, but just one more day. As my son starts to cry, I go to the kitchen and I look into the Lazy Susan blindly where I keep his formula. And I remember just reaching. There was always a can of formula for him. And all I needed was just one more. There was one more can of formula for my son. There was also a can of corn and a can of green beans and a little bit of meat for my babies to eat for the night. One more meal, just one more day. Thank you, God, I can make it tonight. But how did I get here? How did I get to a place where there was never enough food or a disconnect notice or an eviction notice? How did I get here? I took my 2 girls to school with me every single day just to graduate high school and get my high school diploma. I did have a plan. My plan was to go to school, to college, and become a nurse so that I could take care of mothers and birth babies just like the women who had helped me birth my last son. I was kind of embarrassed when I was a single teenage mom and that nurse told me just one more hot dog in the pot. You're fine. That was enough. That was all I needed to continue. But I couldn't go to college. It was just too much for me as a single mom. And I was trying to figure out what way I could go to feed my family and make sure there was everything there that we needed. And a friend of mine said, you're already doing hair out of your home. Why don't you go to school for cosmetology? I got it. I'll do that. It's easy. It's something that I love, and it'll be quick. I remember getting ready for graduation and standing, getting ready to ring the bell, and I saw my uncle walk through. And I'm like, what is he doing here? He lives 30 miles away. Why would he be coming in here to see me like it's not even graduation? And I ran to him with my arms wide open, but he wasn't smiling. Instead, he began to tell me that my mother, who was 39 years old, had had a stroke and was on her deathbed. Everything was crushed for me. All of my dreams. That woman who was my advocate, my encourager, my supporter, she called me every single night to tell me that she loved me. And here she was, motionless, having multiple strokes at the age of 39. I was terrified and angry. How could this happen? I gave up my dreams of becoming a nurse, but I did graduate for cosmetology school. But then again, I said, okay, I've got to do something else. In the meantime, my father, he took care of, there's 7 of us. There's 6 girls, 1 boy. And he said, I'm taking my wife, my wife and my kids are moving to Ohio because I feel like she's going to get better care there. And I said, I'm going to stay here, Dad, because I'm going to continue going to medical school. I'm going to get what I need to get to take care of Mom. So I stayed behind. When I finished medical assisting class and got my certification and my license, I called my dad and I said, hey, now I'm ready. Can you come and get me? He packed up the U-Haul and my babies and drove us back to Ohio. At that time, I wasn't working and I was staying with him. I started to find work. And like I said, my goal was to take care of my mom. That's the whole reason why I started back into nursing. Well, in the midst of that, she passed away. And again, I gave up everything. I said, I will not go back. I don't want anything to do with the healthcare field. I don't want to be a nurse. I don't care about that. And my dad said, do what you have to do. Because I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm going to take care of all of you all. And your mother has given you that strength. Do what you have to do. In the midst of figuring out what I'm going to do, someone come to me and said, why don't you become an AmeriCorps Vista? I'm done with the healthcare field. All right, I'll give it a try. Well, it worked. I worked up under a life coach for 2 years. And one day the life coach couldn't work anymore. And the next thing I remember is getting a call saying, we need you to do the program for tonight. I'm like, I'm not a life coach. I can't do this. Like, what are you talking about? They said, if you trust in yourself, we trust in you. You've got this. I had no idea that I had that, but I always remember my mother and my father's words. Trust in myself. I can do it. If my father can take 7 kids on his own and move to another state, I can do this. The night didn't go as planned, but I did it. 2 years later, I became director of the program. 4 years later, I became the coach. I was able to help women that were in my shoes, women who needed an advocate, women who needed just one more day, women who needed food and clothing, someone to talk to. And I was there. I became that person. Fast forward, 2 years ago, my father was diagnosed with cancer. He called me up one day and he said, I'm coming to live with you. Now, mind you, full circle, the first thing that I have done as a medical assistant was work with people who had cancer. I had no idea that that was the first job that I would do. And now here I am taking care of my father. He came and got me in that U-Haul with my children and said I could come and live with him. And now he's living with me and I'm helping to take care of him. Wow. Oh my gosh. It just all makes sense. How it all validates my struggle and wanting to just do things and fight. How I always wanted to do these things. Dad, this is because of you. Dad, I fought. And I'm here. Just one more day.
Hi, my name is Annette Ucci, and I'm the production manager for True Theater. You know, I was fortunate enough to sit in on a rehearsal with Christina and Dave, and was thinking at that time that she is such a strong person to have made it through such hardship and be where she is today. Just fantastic. Wow. Well, I am here to introduce our final storyteller tonight. Dave actually invited her to reshare a story she told in our very first season of True Theater. It's so fitting that we finish up our 10th anniversary season with her story. And as you'll hear, it's the perfect story for tonight's theme. She is an activist, typically carrying out her activism with a video camera, producing community-centered television as an independent media producer and video documentarist. She also trains others how to do the same. Just a couple of her documentaries include Victory on the Parkway, about the Olms Apartments being saved by its residents. Another one is These Old Buildings Raised Our Many Children, made for and with a group of long-term residents of Over the Rhine. She is a member of the Women's Film Project. She has served as videographer on 3 productions, including the festival-winning The Other Side of the Fence, directed by Lynn Esterman. And her credits go on and on. But sometimes she does put down her camera and engages in activism in another fashion, as you are about to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce Barbara Wolf.
When I was a child in Michigan, they had voting machines, and I would watch my mother go into the booth, pull the curtain behind her, and then I would hear bunches of clicks, click, 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 click. And then there would be this wonderful loud mechanical sound, cha-chung. She would then come out of the booth looking very satisfied and very strong. I was like, yes, I've done it. I always wanted to do that too. But I moved to Cincinnati and never got to use those machines. Punching holes and coloring little squares doesn't give you the same sense of power those old machines did. If we had that sense of power today, more people might show up for elections. Voting has always been a passion of mine. I make video documentaries about issues that I hope will improve life for all of us. And I helped out with Video the Vote. It was a nationwide attempt to keep voting practices fair and legal by being available with a video camera to tape incidences in progress or to interview people after the fact if they had been denied the right to vote. Whenever I felt strongly about any issue, I have found a way to get involved. That's how about 13 years ago, I ended up committing a criminal act. I didn't do it alone. There were 7 of us. I had friends. Our intention was to perform our criminal act peacefully. So we studied nonviolent communication, a local organization, Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center provided training for us. They also helped us discern if we really wanted to risk doing this. They even put us together in a wonderful group of pro bono lawyers to advise us about the laws we would be breaking and to represent us in court. You may be wondering what it was we were going to do that was so bad. Well, in September 2006, there was a move around the country to get members of the House of Representatives to sign the Declaration of Peace, the Congressional Declaration of Peace, a very thoughtful document written with the intention of sanely ending the war in Iraq. In Cincinnati, we decided to ask Steve Chabot to sign the paper, since some of us had had experiences with him in the past where we had found him to be willing to listen. So around noon on the 28th, we gathered at his office and asked the staff and asked a staff member to please ask Mr. Chabot to sign the Declaration of Peace. We were told he was in Washington. It was agreed that they would fax the document to his office in Washington. We thanked the staff and said we would sit and wait for it to be signed and faxed back. Mind you, the staff was very kind and polite to us, and we were very respectful with them. Around 5 p.m., they told us They wanted to close the office and suggested we come back the next day. We said, well, we prefer to sit here and wait for the signed document. And then we didn't move. That was the criminal act. It was about 8 p.m. when, pardon me, according to the newspaper, the police shut down Vine Street between 4th and 5th and sent 50 officers, 50, in to arrest a minister in his mid-30s, a Catholic nun in her 80s, a columnist for a local newspaper, a young woman who had recently graduated from college studying peace and justice, 2 high school students, and me for criminal trespassing. The teenagers were hauled off to the juvenile system where they were released to their very proud parents. The adults were driven to the Justice Center in a paddy wagon. We were processed in and 4 of us spent the night in jail. Greg Flannery, the columnist, was bailed out to meet a deadline. Our trial took place in January of 2007. When we arrived in the courtroom, the prosecutor assigned to our case came up to each of us individually and apologized. Can you imagine this? He said, even though he had been a JAG in the military, he agreed with us and our stand, and he told us that he asked to be taken off the case, but was refused. All of our lawyers and our prosecutor did great jobs. Our lawyers argued that we had the right to, by law, to remain in Shabbat's office out of necessity, because under Ohio law, you're allowed to trespass in order to save someone's life. For example, in case of a fire. We were attempting to save many lives by ending the war in Iraq. But the judge told the jury that our lawyer's argument was not relevant, pardon me, in this case because it was a government property we had entered. Thus, they could not use the logic in their decision. They found us guilty. Our lawyers appealed the case, denied. They took the case to the Ohio Supreme Court, where the judges didn't want to hear it. That was about the same time that George W. Bush pardoned Scooter Libby, which kindled the idea of asking the governor to pardon us. That didn't happen. So back we went to the first courtroom for sentencing. This is a year and a half later. After talking to the judge, our lawyers were assured that we would be given 20 hours of community service and 6 months probation. The probation they considered a jury tax. I told my lawyer that I refused to do community service because I think of my life work as community service, and I don't want to think of my life and work as punishment. The lawyers all thought I might be given 3 days in jail. After the judge sentenced everyone, the promised 20 hours community service, 6 months probation, and of course, court costs amounting to $700, my lawyer explained to the judge that I refused to do community service. The judge was not amused. He smacked his hammer on the desk and said 10 days. I was immediately handcuffed, and shortly thereafter, I was hauled away. About 4 hours later, I met my first cellmate, Keisha. She gave me the same look several others had along the way and asked the same question. How long are you in for? I don't think I look like a criminal. When I told her 10 days, she was looking befuddled like the others and asked, what was I in for? I told her criminal trespassing for protesting the war. She also said something like, wow. And like several others along the way, she said, they gave you 10 days for that? She left our cell, and when she returned 20 minutes later, every woman in the pod had been told my name and that I was an activist. Well, a quick note about the jail population, which is really important. I was rather surprised to find out that 95% of the women in my pod were in jail for either drugs and prostitution or prostitution and drugs. Of those 95%, had been sexually abused as children. What I realized was that most of those women were being punished for attempting to alleviate pain. What else were they like? Well, their generosity was remarkable. If you said you needed something and it was anywhere in the pod, it showed up. You were not asked to pay for it. The inmates just took care of each other. Not only were they generous with things, they were generous in their conversations. What is lovely about jail is that you have time, and so does everyone else. That is not to say there were not some tense moments, some harsh words, some difficult times, sometimes when noise factor was terrifying. It was painful. I discovered that toilet paper earplugs did not help much. That was when I learned to meditate. As the days went on, I was approached by maybe 10 different prisoners who asked me, who, Ms. Wolf, how can I become an activist? Okay. I suggested they start with something small. Since the presidential election was 2 months away, I suggested that as soon as they got out of jail, they register to vote, get all their family and all their friends registered to vote, and then go to the nearest Obama headquarters and volunteer. It was fun watching their faces. One woman said, "You mean we could just walk right in there and volunteer?" When I got out, I wanted to keep in touch with my new friends who were still in, but I wasn't allowed to visit anyone in jail for 30 days, so I felt quite out of touch, even though I sent my husband to visit my friend Diane for me. Some time passed when in the IGA in Clifton, I was about to walk down the soup aisle when I heard a woman's voice, very excited, calling me, "Miss Barbara, Miss Barbara." She ran up to me and hugged me. Never before had I seen such a big smile and such alive eyes. "I voted for the first time in my life, Miss Barbara, and I voted for Obama." A few days later, I was finally able to visit my friend Diane, who was still in jail. I told her about the exchange in the IGA, and she told me that she went from pod to pod collecting and delivering laundry. She talked to many prisoners about voting absentee, and she helped absentee ballots for 50 of them. We put down our phones and we smacked the bulletproof window between us. You see if I can get that, boom, like that, between us, which is as close to a high-fiving as you can get when you're visiting a friend who's in jail.
Thank you, Barbara. A quick add on to Barbara's story. While she was in jail, she was visited by Greg Flannery, the columnist who was arrested with her, to ask if she could get some quotes from the woman in jail about the war that Barbara had been protesting. Greg would publish them in Cincinnati's contribution to the international street newspaper movement that focuses on homeless and social justice issues in Cincinnati, Street Vibes. She asked if I would read this one from a woman named Amanda. Amanda said, "They put us in jail, so we will take time to think. George Bush needs to stop and think. He sent troops over for nothing based on a lie. He needs to end this war. Perhaps he should spend time in jail so he could think." Barbara says every time she looks at the quotes, she starts to cry because they're so thoughtful and moving, but this one always makes her smile. Thanks again, Barbara. And thanks to all of our storytellers, Megan and Kim and Sines and Christina and Barbara. And thanks again, Lindsay, for that beautiful music, Jackson, Annette, and Patrick behind the scenes, making this whole thing run smoothly, and Ramona, Kathy, Marta, and Annette for emceeing the evening. And all of these people that you're about to see on this slide, every one of them and more that I'm sure I missed contributed to making tonight happen. Thank you all so much. Friends, remember you could donate to our 10 for 10 campaign by texting TRUE10, that's TRUE10 to 44321. Your donations will help support new programming and our next season, which includes, once again, True Vision, True Birth, True Dog, and, drum roll please, by popular vote, True Neighbor. Follow us on Facebook and get on our mailing list at truetheater.org to be reminded as these events get closer, and share your stories with us and with each other. And until next we see you, be true.
Hello? Are we?
Are we alone now?
Yeah,
No,
are
we're
we?
still-
Like,
we're
I'm
still
not
live
sure
on-
what's happening now.
We're still live on Facebook.
I think that's the lag.